So we're here in the Olympic National Park in northwestern Washington, and we've come to the end of the road at the Hoh Rainforest. That's H-O-H, Hoh for the Hoh River, and we're just on the trail called the Hall of Mosses. Now this is a very easy trail, about 1.1 mile, and it's only got a 100-foot elevation gain. We're looking down the trail, not done this spot before, checking out the mossy trees and the old growth forests, and seeing if we can find some good compositions.
The Hall of Mosses trail is absolutely gorgeous and really worth the walk in and of itself. Even on a rainy day, this is a beautiful location to spend some time.
So Corinne's decided to do this archway of trees across the path. It's the kind of shot that she always enjoys. So it started to rain fairly hard, and it keeps all the leaves really shimmery and green and makes them really stand out. But that also complicates taking a photograph too. So Corinne's getting ready.
So I've got my camera set up with the ISO of 100 to make the shutter speed quite slow, get all the saturated color I can. I'm using a f-stop of f13, so I have pretty good depth of field. And I've focused on the trees that are forming the archway down the path. And there's a nice little bit of light just past the archway of trees. So that's adding a nice glow to pull the eye in. And then I've used a circular polarizing filter so that I can reduce the sheen on the leaves.
So Corinne has changed her position, and she's now moved further down the pathway because she really likes the way these ferns look on the side of the path. So she's using the ferns to kind of frame her shot going down the path. Okay, Corinne, tell us what you're doing now.
So there's a nice pathway through the forest, and on one side we have this really nice row of ferns that are lining the path, and it works its way down towards a set of trees, and the path curves. And I've set up for a longer focal length, about f13. And I've done a zoom in my live view so I can get a good clear picture about midway along the path. But also, while I had it zoomed in, I did adjustments on my polarizing filter because I could see more of the sheen on the fern leaves, and adjust that to minimize the sheen and bring out more of the color of the ferns.
So Corinne's moved on a little bit, and she's now working on this really gnarly old root with the younger cypress in front of it and that beautiful mossy tree behind it. So, and there's lots of lovely ferns kind of right in front of it there, and then so right in front, right about there, is a beautiful fern that she really likes. So, Corinne, we see you setting up for the shot of the gnarly roots, but we think we see you're doing something slightly different than you did in the previous shots. Maybe you'd like to explain.
Well, the rain on the tree is kind of giving it a nice little reflective glow, so I'm using a little less polarizer than I did on the other shots, and I'm framing it in two different compositions. My first one I decided to frame using the whole root system with the little fern sitting in the front, and now I'm doing more of a close-up of the fern with the root as kind of a backdrop to it, giving it a contrast of the green against the reddish brown of the root.
So are you changing the polarizer for the close-up, for the fern and root?
Yes, for the fern I'm adding a little more polarizer to reduce the sheen on the leaves. When I did the whole root, I added a little bit more of the reflective surface of the root and a little more of the sheen. Off the trail from the Hall of Mosses, we've come to this maple grove, and it's got these wonderful large maple trees, and they're just covered in mosses. Some are green and some actually have kind of a rosy orange tinge to them. And so we're setting up a few compositions to try and capture the feel of being below these huge trees covered in these dripping hanging mosses. And Shawn's got his camera set up here, so we'll go find out what his composition looks like. Shawn, can you tell me about your composition here?
Sure. So I'm starting off wide. I'm not exactly sure what I want for the composition, but I like the way that the composition is framed by the large moss-colored tree over here and the large moss-colored tree over on the other side. And I think what I'll end up ultimately doing is using the three trees in the middle with that overhanging branch on the tree at the back there, and the branch that comes down is my main subject. But I think what I'm going to do is work my way in there as opposed to just sort of starting there to start off with, because it really is an attractive photograph actually framing the 5 trees. So as I said, I'm going to work my way in, and I probably will go portrait as opposed to continuing to shoot landscape, because I think I'm just going to want to get really nice 1x1 square format right in that center area, using the ferns on the bottom and then the moss and the trees on the top. Now there's quite a bit of light behind the tree, which is a little bit distracting, but it's adding a lot of glow on the sides of the tree. So I might have to darken that up in post to make it a little less distracting. But I think I'm going to try to keep all of the side lighting on the mossy sides of the trees as part of the photograph.
So let's see what you got on the back of the camera.
So this is the first shot.
Very nice.
So one of the really nice things about photographing in the rainforest or in a forest is that the weather that you want and the kind of light that you want tends to be a lot flatter and a lot duller than you would typically want if you're out doing a great sunset landscape shot. So having a rainy day and drippy moss is actually the preferred situation and is a great time to actually come out and do this kind of photography. One of the things that if you'd like to learn a lot more about taking photographs in the rainforest, you should check out the YouTube channels of Simon Baxter and Adam Gibbs. They are real masters at doing this kind of photography. So we've moved down the trail a little bit, and Corinne has found this beautiful overhanging branch tree. I guess it's a branch off a tree, and with the lovely drippy moss above and the walkway going through. This is I can't resist this kind of shot for Corinne, and we'll ask her to see if there's anything special she does when she's shooting this kind of a shot. Go ahead.
There's two ways to compose this picture. One would be really tight and make that overhanging branch right at the top of the frame and focus more in on the pathway that follows underneath it. The other is to do a broader picture, more zoomed out, and show the context of the tree meeting the trunk and more broadly around the tree and its context in the forest.
So would you change anything with respect to your polarizer or your f-stop, or what would there be any other changes that you'd make?
No, pretty much the same. Take one picture, then adjust the focal length and focus and do your second shot.
So is there a way that you would suggest coming on a composition like this? I mean, start in tight and then expand the shot, or start out wide and then come in more tight? What's your favorite way of doing that?
I generally start wider and then think about narrowing it down as I look more intensely at the composition. Another composition here. What are you working on?
Well, I don't know if this one's going to work or not. It's kind of one of those risky ones. But the shape of the little trunk that's right over there is really kind of cute. And it has, if you just look at it a certain way, it frames this beautiful fern right behind it. So I'm just sort of playing around with the angles for the trunk and the mossy trunk framing the fern, and just trying to decide whether I want to have more in the shot or a tighter shot. So I'm just playing around with that. It's starting to get dark here, so these are very long exposures, and unfortunately the one downside with the rain is that even though we have literally no wind, every time a drop hits the leaves shake. So I've got some shaky leaves in my photographs, and that may actually just ruin the photograph. So we've moved down the trail a little further, and Corinne's going to try to photograph this absolutely gorgeous moss-colored tree with the nice bendy limbs. The challenge she's got is that there's quite a bit of sky up in this area right here, and it may just cause the shot to be a little too overexposed, I think. So she's going to give it a go, and she's working away at it right now. So Corinne is focusing in on the tree pretty tight right now to try to avoid that sky up in the left-hand corner of the shot, and trying to get nice and focused. Corinne, you want to tell us about the setup?
In this particular picture, I'm going to go with a very large aperture, around 6.3, because I'm going to try and make the background a little more blurred and give distinction to this tree.
Cool. Anything else you're going to do differently?
I'm probably going to take down the exposure a little bit so it's not so bright, and as you've mentioned, I'm zeroing in on the tree quite tight so I get less sky. So Shawn, what do you think of the Hoh Rainforest?
I thought it was lovely, actually. We, as it turns out, picked a perfect afternoon to come and shoot. A little bit of rainy, flat light, but just enough light to highlight some of the mosses and that on the trees, so it was terrific.
Yes, we got nice long exposures, and we could dial in or dial out the polarizer to get just the right amount of sheen from the rain.
You also noticed that when it started raining a little harder, most of the folks that were on the trail left. So it did tend to give the place a little bit more to ourselves. So that was good as well.
Yeah, but we've kind of lost the light at this point, so we're packing up and heading out.
We sure hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give us a thumbs up.
And if you'd like to see more of our videos, please consider subscribing. That'll help us out a lot. And you can hit the notification bell when you want to know about new videos that get posted.
And as always, don't hesitate to leave us a comment or a question or a thought. We love hearing from you and try to respond to all of them.
Thanks again, and bye for now.
Good night and bye for now.